I am of certain convinced that the greatest heroes are those who do their duty in the daily grind of domestic affairs whilst the world whirls as a maddening dreidel. I attribute my success to this: I never gave or took any excuse. Rather, 10 times, die in the surf, heralding the way to a new world, than stand idly on the shore. You ask me why I do not write something. I think one's feelings waste themselves in words. They ought all to be distilled into actions and into actions which bring results. The very first requirement in a hospital is that it should do the sick no harm. Live life when you have it. Life is a splendid gift, there is nothing small about it. Let whoever is in charge keep this simple question in her head, not, how can I always do this right thing myself, but, how can I provide for this right thing to be always done? Were there none who were discontented with what they have, the world would never reach anything better. To understand God's thoughts we must study statistics, for these are the measure of His purpose. Nursing is a progressive art such that to stand still is to go backwards. Nature alone cures. What nursing has to do, is to put the patient in the best condition for nature to act upon him. Woman has nothing but her affections, and this makes her at once more loving and less loved. So never lose an opportunity of urging a practical beginning, however small, for it is wonderful how often in such matters the mustard seed germinates and roots itself. It may seem a strange principle to enunciate as the very first requirement in a hospital that it should do the sick no harm. It is quite necessary nevertheless to lay down such a principle. Unless we are making progress in our nursing every year, every month, every week, take my word for it, we are going back. Every nurse ought to be careful to wash her hands very frequently during the day. If her face, too, so much the better. What cruel mistakes are sometimes made by benevolent men and women in matters of business about which they can know nothing and think they know a great deal. The most important practical lesson that can be given to nurses is to teach them what to observe, how to observe, what symptoms indicate improvement, what the reverse, which are of importance, which are of none, which are the evidence of neglect, and of what kind of neglect. I use the word nursing for want of a better. It has been limited to signify little more than the administration of medicines and the application of poultices. It ought to signify the proper use of fresh air, light, warmth, cleanliness, quiet, and the proper selection and administration of diet, all at the least expense of vital power to the patient. Apprehension, uncertainty, waiting, expectation, fear of surprise, do a patient more harm than any exertion. Remember my name, you'll be screaming it later. The most important practical lesson that can be given to nurses is to teach them what to observe. Life is a hard fight, a struggle, a wrestling with the principle of evil, hand to hand, foot to foot. Every inch of the way is disputed. The night is given us to take breath, to pray, to drink deep at the fountain of power. The day, to use the strength which has been given us, to go forth to work with it till the evening. For the sick it is important to have the best. Our first journey is to find that special place for us. If a patient is cold, if a patient is feverish, if a patient is faint, if he is sick after taking food, if he has a bed sore, it is generally the fault not of the disease, but of the nursing. Volumes are now written and spoken upon the effect of the mind upon the body. Much of it is true. But I wish a little more was thought of the effect of the body on the mind. Unnecessary noise is the most cruel abuse of care which can be inflicted on either the sick or the well. Nursing is an art, and if it is to be made an art, it requires an exclusive devotion as hard a preparation as any painter's or sculptor's work. Let us never consider ourselves finished nurses, we must be learning all of our lives. Nursing is an art, and if it is to be made an art, it requires an exclusive devotion as hard a preparation as any painter's or sculptor's work, for what is the having to do with dead canvas or dead marble, compared with having to do with the living body, the temple of God's Spirit? It is one of the fine arts, I had almost said, the finest of fine arts. The symptoms or the sufferings generally considered to be inevitable and incident to the disease are very often not symptoms of the disease at all, but of something quite different, of the want of fresh air, or of light, or of warmth, or of quiet, or of cleanliness, or of punctuality and care in the administration of diet, of each or of all of these. May we hope that, when we are all dead and gone, leaders will arise who have been personally experienced in the hard, practical work, the difficulties, and the joys of organizing nursing reforms, and who will lead far beyond anything we have done. We know nothing of the principle of health, the positive of which pathology is the negative, except from observation and experience. And nothing but observation and experience will teach us the ways to maintain or to bring back the state of health. It is often thought that medicine is the curative process. It is no such thing, nature alone cures. And what, true, nursing has to do, is to put the patient in the best condition for nature to act upon him. No man, not even a doctor, ever gives any other definition of what a nurse should be than this: devoted and obedient. This definition would do just as well for a porter. It might even do for a horse. It would not do for a policeman. Never give nor take an excuse. Jesus Christ raised women above the condition of mere slaves, mere ministers to the passions of the man, raised them by his sympathy, to be ministers of God. To understand God's thoughts, one must study statistics, for these are the measure of his purpose.